Hare Ram, Ram.
Hare Krishna devotees, please accept my humble obeisances. All glories Sri Prabhupada and Guru Maharaj. Today we'll read from the second canto, Srimad Bhagavatam. Let me offer brief prayers. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Narayanam Namaskritya Naram Chaiva Narottamam Devim Saraswatim Vyasam Tato Jayam Buddhirayet. नष्टप्रायेषु अभद्रेषु नित्यं भागवत सेवया भगवती उत्तम श्लोके भक्तिर्भवति नैष्टिकी. So let me share my screen. We're reading from second canto, chapter number 5, from verse 15 to verse 29. Let me see. Yeah, the chapter is titled Cause of All Causes. We're reading from text 15. The Vedic literatures are made by and are meant for the Supreme Lord. The demigods are also meant for serving the Lord as parts of his body. The different planets are also meant for the sake of the Lord, and different sacrifices are performed just to please him. Text 16. All different types of meditation or mysticism are means for realizing Narayana. All austerities are aimed at achieving Narayana. Culture of transcendental knowledge is for getting a glimpse of Narayana, and ultimately salvation is entering the kingdom of Narayana. Text 17. Inspired by him only, I discover what is already created by him, Narayana, under his vision as the all-pervading supersoul, and I also am created by him only. Text 18. The Supreme Lord is pure, spiritual form, transcendental to all material qualities. Yet, for the sake of creation of the material world and its maintenance and annihilation, he accepts through his external energy the material modes of nature called goodness, passion, and ignorance. Text 19. These three modes of material nature, being further manifested as matter, knowledge, and activities, put the eternally transcendental living entity under conditions of cause and effect and make him responsible for such activities. Text 20. O Brahmana Narada, the superseer, the transcendental Lord, is beyond the perception of material senses of living entities because of the above mentioned three modes of material nature. But he is the controller of everyone, including me. Text 21. The Lord, who is the controller of all energies, thus creates by his own potency, eternal time, the fate of all living entities and their particular nature for which they were created, and he again measures them independently. Text 22. After the incarnation of the first Purusha, Karnarnava Sai Vishnu, the Mahatattva, or the principles of material creation take place, and then time is manifested, and in course of time, the three qualities appear. Nature means the three qualitative appearances. They transform into activities. Text 23. Material activities are caused by the Mahatattvas being agitated. At first, there is transformation of the modes of goodness and passion, and later, due to the mode of ignorance, matter, its knowledge, and different activities of material knowledge come into play. Text 24. The self centered materialistic ego, thus being transformed into three features, becomes known as the modes of goodness, passion, and ignorance in three divisions, namely, the powers that evolve matter, knowledge of material creations, and the intelligence that guides such materialistic activities. Narada, you are quite competent to understand this. Text 25. From the darkness of false ego, the first of the five elements, namely the sky, is generated. Its subtle form is the quality of sound, exactly as the seer is in relationship with the seen. Text 26 to 29. Because the sky is transformed, the air is generated with the quality of touch, and by previous succession, The air is also full of sound and the basic principles of duration of life, sense perception, mental power, and bodily strength. When the air is transformed in course of time and nature's course, fire is generated, taking the shape with the sense of touch and sound. Since fire is also transformed, there is a manifestation of water, full of juice and taste. As previously, it also has form and touch and is also full of sound. And water, being transformed from all variegatedness on earth, appears odorous and as previously becomes qualitatively full of juice, touch, sound, and form, respectively. Yeah, I think that's the last verse today. Vamsi was in Prabhuji. Whenever you're ready, you can start, Prabhuji.
Okay, we are continuing from chapter 5, second canto, text 15 onwards. We will talk a brief prayer. Om Ajnanatimirandasya Jnananjana Chakshurunmilitam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha. Namo Vishnupadaya Krishna Prasthaya Bhutale Srimate Bhaktivedanta Swamini Namine. Namaste Saraswati Deve Gauravani Pracharine Nirvishesha Shunyavadi Paschatyade Satarine. Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Srivasadi Gaurava Pravinda. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare. Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare. Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare. Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna. So we'll continue from text 15 onwards. The theme is that Sri Narad Muni is asking questions to Lord Brahma, and Lord Brahma is answering all the questions. So last week we saw that Sri Narad Muni is asking questions in the initial verses of this chapter, and the answers to some of those questions will be answered in the set of verses that we read today, especially question 1, where it states the characteristics of the universe. And in question 2, he asked what is the shelter of the universe. And in question 3, how the universe was created, the process of creation. And in question 5, what the universe depends on. Partially, all these questions will be answered. So something that we can learn that such an exalted personality like Sri Narad Muni, who himself knows everything, he's called Trikala Yajna. He knows past, present, and future. But such a personality is going and inquiring from his guru. So the entire disciplic succession, we can learn from them that they don't have even a tinge of ego. They show the quality of humility always, all these exalted souls, so that we can look up to them, because only by humility that we can approach the Supreme Lord. They are teaching by example. So in text 15, Lord Brahma is answering Sri Narad Muni. He's continuing to answer. So he's answering question 2 and 5. So who is the shelter and dependence of this universe? And in text 15, he's answering that it is Lord Narayana. He is the ultimate shelter. All the Vedic literatures, the demigods who are serving Krishna, and different sacrifices, everything is meant to please Lord Narayana, is what Lord Brahma is saying. And Prabhupada states some few points in the purport that we can meditate upon. He states that the Vedas are meant to revive the forgotten consciousness of the conditioned soul. So what is the purpose of the Vedas? Is to revive that consciousness that we belong to Krishna. And Prabhupada states that any literature not meant for reviving God consciousness, it is rejected at once by the Narayana Para devotees. We saw that in the 3rd chapter also, where Srila Sukadeva Goswami talks about pure devotional service. He mentions about the literatures which don't describe about Krishna are pilgrimage of crows. So when a pure devotee wants to glorify Krishna, he never touches any literature which is not related to Krishna. That is what Prabhupada is saying. But a pure devotee is very rare to find. Right? Narayana para sarve na kutasya bibyati swalpa apavarga narakeshu apitulyardarshinaha. They don't want anything. except Krishna. They don't care where they are. If Srila Bhaktivinoda Thakur, he prays that let me be born in a devotee's home as an insect. I don't want even the life of Brahma. So that is their mode. So any other literature that is not connected to Krishna, they reject it at once. And then Prabhupada writes, this material world, all the planets, including this material world, are attractive because something for us to meditate upon. Prabhupada says they have different varieties of life and bliss, but the problem is it's partial. It's partially representing the Satchidananda Vigraha, Prabhupada says. Partially representing. Like in the 15th chapter that we are reading, Lord Krishna states that this material world is the perverted reflection of the spiritual world. There is some aspect to it, some happiness, some bliss, but it is all temporary and it is flickering. It is partial. That's what Prabhupada is saying. That's why that partial thing only keeps us going, but unfortunately we don't know what is the purpose of this creation. And duration of life with proportionate quantity of bliss and knowledge may be increased from one planet to another. So as and when we go above from Earth to the higher planetary systems, it may increase partially, but still it's not complete. So Prabhupada then finally says, all kinds of sacrifice are performed just to satisfy Lord Narayana with a view to reach him. So what is the purpose of our chanting? Our purpose of our chanting is to serve Krishna in the spiritual world. Prabhupada is reminding us. And the best sacrifice recommended in this age of Kali is Sankirtan Yajna, is congregationally coming together and chanting and glorifying Krishna. The mainstay of devotional service of Narayana para devotee. So if we all are aspiring, because unless and until we become a Narayana para devotee, we are not allowed to be in the spiritual world. That is what Prabhupada is saying indirectly. So we have to take up to the process of Sankirtan Yajna. And then in text 16, the same theme continues. All different types of meditation, mysticism, everything is finally meant to be, is done to realize Lord Narayana in the end, right? So Prabhupada writes in the purport, ultimately all the systems that are existing are meant for realizing the impersonal Brahman, which is but a partial representation of Lord Narayana, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, right? Generally people practice other forms of yoga. Any form of yoga is ultimately to connect to Krishna. But all the other forms, Prabhupada is saying, even though they may be aspiring for impersonal Brahman, but it is all a partial representation of Lord Narayana's creation. The impersonal Brahman effulgence is only a part of Krishna and is situated on the person of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Krishna. And such Brahman is the glorification of Krishna. Krishna mentions in the Bhagavad Gita in the 7th chapter. And oneness with the impersonal Brahma Jyoti is not ultimate liberation, Prabhupada saying. There is something beyond that. So therefore, conclusion is, Narayana, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, is the ultimate destination for all kinds of yoga systems. All kinds of yoga systems eventually have to come to the path of bhakti. In fact, the other day, Great Sundarachala Prabhu, he was sharing one verse, maybe we might have already read. Directly it mentions that even if someone is aspiring for some other form of yoga, unless and until they take shelter of Krishna, it is not possible for them to cross this material world. Finally, everyone has to come to the point of surrendering to Krishna. And in text 17 onwards, now the link Gaurangashan Prabhuji writes is that, so, okay, all this explanation is okay, but Srila Narada Muni might ask Lord Brahma, if Narayana is everything, then what do you do? What is your role in this creation? So now Lord Brahma in the next 3-4 verses will start explaining about his role. Now he is humbling himself. Again, we are seeing the quality of humility. Lord Brahma, he is saying, inspired by him only. Who? By Krishna or Lord Narayana. I discover what is already created by him. Lord Narayana has already created the first portion of the creation. And I am also created by him only. Lord Brahma is just involved in the secondary creation, Sarga and Visarga. So already the first creation is done, Lord Brahma is doing the secondary creation. So Prabhupada writes in the purport, amazing analogy, like for a dumb person like me to understand. Prabhupada writes, the super soul is the Supreme Lord, the personality of Godhead, where the individual soul is the eternal servitor of the Lord. How do we understand this? The Lord inspires the individual soul to create what is already created by Krishna. Everything is already done, but he is just inspiring someone to do the creation. And by the goodwill of Krishna, a discoverer of something in the world is accredited as a discoverer. We are just given some credit. So we should not think that, oh, I did something. Prabhupada is reminding us, and he's giving us an example. It is said that Columbus discovered the Western Hemisphere, but actually the tract of land was not created by Columbus. The vast tract of land was already there by the omnipotency of the Supreme Lord. And Columbus, by dint of his past service to Krishna, was blessed with the credit of discovering America. This is beautiful. Prabhupada is writing here. He's saying only because of past credits, some sukriti he had. That is the reason why he apparently found America, but the tract of land already existed. In fact, in another purport somewhere, Prabhupada writes that all the things that a person does in this world is only all the opulences a person does is a blessing of Krishna actually. That is how we need to see. If somebody is really opulent, somebody is really well off, it's all because of their past credits and past sukriti, and Krishna has blessed them with their sukriti, whatever may be they are in life. This is how pure devotee sees everything connected to Krishna. How Prabhupada is saying, this ability is also awarded by the Lord according to one's willingness to render service unto the Lord. Therefore, by voluntarily willing to render service unto Krishna, thus Krishna will empower the doer in proportion to surrender to the lotus feet of Krishna. This one verse will apply to everything. To the proportion we surrender to Krishna, in whatever aspirations we have, spiritual or material, Krishna will reciprocate accordingly. Many more things Prabhupada says. And then finally he says, the subtle presence of Krishna is felt by the intelligent man who can study the psychic effects of thinking, willing and feeling. Because Prabhupada writes, every living entity's intelligence is overseen by Krishna. So that intelligence is also given by Krishna only. So with that intelligence that is given by Krishna, we have to use it to come closer to Him. And in text 18, the Supreme Lord is pure spiritual form, transcendental to all material qualities. Lord Brahma states. And he states the Supreme Lord is the master of external energy, Maya, manifested by three gunas: goodness, passion, and ignorance. And as master of this energy, he is never affected by the influence of such bewildering energy. Lord Prabhupada is saying that Krishna is never affected. Lord Krishna also, he confirms that in Bhagavad Gita. And living entities who are entangled in this material world are neither masters nor controllers. We are never masters or controllers. We are always servants. In fact, few years ago, maybe a couple of years ago, when we were in book distribution, we met a person of different religion, and he was also a very staunch follower of a particular religion. And he was saying, okay, what do you think about God? And I told that we are meant to establish a relationship with God. And he said, what kind of relationship? I said, servant. We all are meant to be servants of God. Immediately he said, no. How can that be? Right? The word servant itself is very difficult for most of us to comprehend or even accept the fact that we are meant to serve the Supreme Whole. Very difficult, unless and until an Acharya like Prabhupada comes and smashes our ego. And then in text 19, the three modes of material nature being further manifested as matter, knowledge and activities put the eternally transcendental living entity under conditions of cause and effect and make him responsible for such activities. So we are not to blame Krishna for the things that happen in our life. Everything that happens, good or bad, even in a devotee's life, is due to our own actions. That is how we need to see. Tattenu kompam susamiktamano gunjana evatma kritam vipakam. It is only by our activities that we are meant to suffer or reap benefits in our bhakti. Prabhupada writes, because they are between the internal and external potencies, who, jivas like us, we are tatastha shakti. The eternally transcendental living entities are called the marginal potency of Krishna. We are all marginal. Prabhupada writes in the purport. So actually the living entities are not meant to be so conditioned by material energy but due to their being affected by false sense of lording it over, like Lord Krishna says, Ichcha Dvesha Samudvena in Bhagavad Gita, it is only because of desire and hate. We want to lord it over Krishna. We are given that choice. And because of this, we come under the influence of Krishna's potency and thus become conditioned. Immediately we are caught. As soon as we come into this material world, we are immediately caught by the three gunas: goodness, passion, and ignorance. And our material life starts there. And in text 20, the Jiva cannot see the Lord. Many people challenge us, right? Can you show me God? Lord Brahma is answering here. O Brahmana Narada, the superseer, the transcendental Lord, is beyond the perception of material senses of the living entity. Krishna is beyond. You see, this is Lord Brahma speaking. He is not a normal personality. He is the creator of this universe under the supervision of Krishna. Because of the above mentioned three modes of nature, he is clarifying. Because we are all conditioned by the three modes, we cannot see Krishna. That is why Prabhupada again and again he states that with our blunt material senses, we cannot see Krishna. And Prabhupada states that the Lord is not approachable by everyone. Not approachable by everyone. Because he is curtained by his Yogamaya potency. Naham Prakasha Sarvasya Yogamaya Samavrita. Not everyone can perceive Krishna. Prabhupada said, this misconception of formlessness, but because we cannot perceive, people conclude that God is formless. But Prabhupada says, this misconception of formless of the Supreme Personality of Godhead Krishna is due to the Yogamaya curtain of Krishna. Krishna puts a curtain, but Prabhupada saying that curtain can be removed only by the Supreme Will, only by Krishna's will, as soon as the conditioned soul surrenders onto him. This is the condition. This is the criteria that we can somehow little bit perceive Krishna is only when we surrender, as Krishna states in Bhagavad Gita. Only when we completely surrender to Krishna, then Krishna removes the curtain. The devotees of Krishna are all transcendental to the above three modes of material nature and can see the all blissful transcendental form of the Lord within their vision of love in the attitude of pure devotional service. Vamsayo vyabhicharena bhakti yogena sevate. Sagunan samati taitan brahma bhuyaya kalpate. Krishna states that only when we go above the three modes of material nature and when we practice pure bhakti, not just bhakti, kevala bhakti, we all should, at least to myself I can speak, I should try to come to the platform of kevala bhakti, not mixed bhakti. Prabhupada is saying kevala bhakti anointed with pure love. That is our aspiration in life. And in text 21 to 35, question 3 is answered, the creation of the universe. All the technicalities will be given from now onwards until text 35, but we will be discussing only till 29 today. So in 21, the Lord, who is the controller of all energies, thus creates by his own potency. So what all Krishna creates was the eternal time, the fate of the living entities, that is karma, and their particular nature according to karma for which they were created, and he again merges them independently. So this is done by Mahavishnu, Karanodakashaya Vishnu. Prabhupada writes in the creation of the material world, where the conditioned souls are allowed to act subordinately by Krishna, takes place again and again, being repeatedly annihilated, created and annihilated. Prabhupada very, very often uses Bhutva Bhutva Praliyate. In text 8, in chapter 8, he uses that. The real sky is the spiritual sky, eternally filled with the rays of Brahma Jyoti, and a portion of this unlimited sky is covered by Mahat Tattva, cloud of the material creation, in which the conditioned souls who want to lord it over against Lord are put into play. Prabhupada said in Krida. Many times Krishna has mentioned that you are a wonderful actor by his pure devotees. We are put into play as they desire. It's because of our desire, under the control of Krishna by his external agency. Krishna is never involved. He may be there in different expansions, but he's not directly involved. He uses his energies to make us come into this play that we desire to be away from Krishna. So the creation and annihilation of the material worlds is a regular action of Krishna. Just why Krishna does this creation? What is the purpose of this creation? Just to allow the conditioned souls to play as they like. Just like a kid wants to go and play in the park, the parent says, fine, go and play. Thereby create their own fate. Whom are we to blame? Ourselves. Of being differently created again in terms of their independent desires at the time of annihilation. It's not that, oh, after annihilation, everything goes to zero, like many people think. Oh, everything becomes zero, then nothing. No. Our subtle desires are still there. Our karma is still there. That is why Srila Prabhupada states that even if we have a tinge of material desire, Krishna is so kind, he will send us back again to the material world. Prabhupada often reminds us, it is said that although the air and the atoms rest within the huge expansion of the sky, which is like the resting reservoir of everything, Prabhupada is giving analogy here, still the sky remains separate and unaffected. Sky is still unaffected. Similarly, although Krishna maintains everything created by his expansion of energy, still Krishna remains aloof and separate. And Prabhupada gives analogy, but he always backs up with some Acharya's commentary. He states, he quotes Sripad Adi Shankaracharya, and he says, Narayana Paro Avyakta. Lord Narayana exists separately, apart from the impersonal creative energy. And then in text 22, after the creation of the first Purusha, that is Mahavishnu or Karanodagashai Vishnu or Karanavashai Vishnu, the Mahatattva or the principles of material creation take place, and then time is manifested. First Mahatattva is created and then time is manifested. And in due course of time, the three gunas are manifested. So Prabhupada writes in the purport, Kala or time may be taken as the first cause of all creation. And by transformation of nature, different activities of the material world become visible. And in text 23, material activities are caused by Mahatattvas being agitated. So Mahatattva we can assume to be, according to the scientists, they think that it is some big bang, some dense matter, some in a mundane way, we can understand like that. That is agitated, and at first there is a transformation of the modes of goodness, passion, and ignorance. Then its knowledge and different activities of material knowledge come into play. Prabhupada writes, the Mahatattva is the principle of material creation, and when it is agitated by the will of Krishna, what happens? The three modes of material, three modes are created. First is passion and goodness are prominent, and after the mode of passion being generated in due course of time, ignorance is also created. And Brahma is a representation. So there are three predominating deities. Lord Brahma represents mode of passion, Lord Vishnu is a representation of goodness, and Lord Shiva is the mode of ignorance. And Prabhupada writes, he is the father of all material activities. See, Prabhupada writes a very important point. Lord Shiva is the father and Goddess Durga is the mother of this material world. Material nature is called the father, and the initiator of the material life is the father, Lord Shiva. And this is not a blanket statement by Prabhupada, this is from Brahma Samhita, Prabhupada is quoting. By cultivation of the mode of goodness, Prabhupada writes, a glimpse of spiritual nature is perceived. So it is very important for us to cultivate the mode of goodness. Where Srila Rupa Goswami begins Srila Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu, its mode of goodness is essential. That is why we need to strive to eat the right kind of food at the right time, wake up early in the morning. This is all in the mode of goodness. Prabhupada is saying, he's writing, a glimpse of spiritual nature is perceived, but due to prominence of mode of passion, the mode of goodness becomes adulterated. Prabhupada is also writing our weakness. We are predominantly mode of passion. It's very difficult to come to even mode of goodness. That is why we have to practice in the association of devotees. Therefore, one cannot transcend the limits of material modes. Therefore, the realization of Krishna, who's always transcendental to the three modes, becomes very difficult. Because Krishna is always above three modes, we are struggling to come to even goodness. How we can perceive Krishna? Prabhupada is writing. So we have to cultivate to come to the mode of goodness. And in text 24, the self next is false ego is created, ahankar. From Mahat Tattva, the three modes are created. Then after that, ahankar is created. The self-centered materialistic ego, thus being transformed into three features, becomes known as modes of goodness. There are also ego in mode of goodness, passion, and ignorance. Three categories are there in that. And Prabhupada writes, in the purport, false ego or sense of identification with matter is grossly self-centered, devoid of clear knowledge of existence of Krishna. And this self-centered egoism is the cause of their being conditioned by other paraphernalia. Prabhupada stating all the problems in our life is the root cause of all our problems is false ego. All the anarthas in our life, the root cause is false ego. If we can transform that false ego into true ego under the guidance of a guru, that's when our bad tendencies within our heart gradually go away. It is all about transforming the false ego into the true ego. True ego is considering ourselves to be servants of Krishna. Right? Prabhupada writes, the self-centered impersonalist without a clear conception of Krishna concludes his own way. That is the problem. See, impersonalists, they rely on themselves. They don't rely on the mercy of Krishna. There is no question of surrender there. It is all by their own will they think, oh, I'll try to liberate myself. But Prabhupada is saying this is a problem because it takes a material shape from his original impersonal spiritual existence of a particular mission. This ignorance of personal feature of Krishna is simply due to ignorance of mixture of different modes. They're still under the material modes. They think they're liberated. People who don't come to the path of bhakti, they are still within the three modes, even though they may think they are liberated. Prabhupada's writing. The reason is that Lord reserves the right of not exposing himself to a non-devotee, who even after a thorough study of literatures like Bhagavad Gita remains an impersonalist simply by obstinacy. This obstinacy is due to the action of Yogamaya curtain, and Yogamaya is a personal energy of Krishna that acts like an AD camp by covering the vision of the obstinate impersonalist. Prabhupada states. There may be so many institutions around this world trying to preach so many things that God is ultimately impersonal and then Krishna is a form of impersonal energy. They can speak all nonsense, but Prabhupada is saying this is all happening because they have not come to the point of surrender. Unless and until somebody surrenders to Krishna, Krishna keeps the curtain closed. As simple as that. They can go on speaking like this. We can go on arguing with them, but nothing will happen. So what we should do as devotees, we should not argue with such people. That is why Srila Rupa Goswami says, better not to associate with such people. And then in text 25, from the darkness of false ego, the first of five elements, namely the sky, is generated. From false ego, sky is generated. And subtle form is the quality of sound, exactly as the seer is in relationship with the seen. This is an amazing purport, something for us to read today. Prabhupada writes, the five elements, namely sky, air, fire, water, and earth, are all but different qualities of darkness of false ego. Everything, all these elements are from false ego. This means that false ego is the sum total of Mahatattva. Prabhupada writes, save and except Krishna, no one can be called enjoyer. None of us are enjoyers, but the living entity falsely desires to become enjoyer. We want to enjoy. This is the origin of false ego. Where did false ego come from? Prabhupada's saying. It's because of a desire to enjoy. So, in such a state, when a bewildered living being desires this, to enjoy separate from Krishna, the shadow elements are generated by the will of Krishna, and the living entities are allowed to run after them as after a phantasmagoria. It's all illusion. The things that we are running after in this world is all illusion. It's all due to our ego to lord it over in this material world. And Prabhupada states in like how it mentions in the translation also, right? From the sky is what sound is created, subtle form. Sound is created, and Prabhupada writes, sound representation of Krishna in terms of his characteristics is the complete form of the Lord. I'm repeating, sound representation of Krishna is the complete form of Krishna, as was seen by Vasudeva and Maharaj Dasharath, the fathers of Lord Krishna and Lord Ram. The sound representation of Krishna is non-different from Krishna himself, because the Lord and his representation in sound are absolute knowledge. Prabhupada stating that the Hare Krishna Mahamantra is not different from Krishna. Lord Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu has instructed us that in the holy name of Lord, as sound representation of Lord, all potencies of the Lord are invested. Nana Makari Bahuda Nija Sarva Shakti. All Shaktis are there in Krishna's name. Right? Thus, one can immediately enjoy the association of Krishna by pure vibration of sound representation of his holy name, and concept of the Lord is immediately manifested before the pure devotee. Right? So we should all aspire to chant the holy name purely. Is it there in our hands? No. Pure name descends. So we should all aspire in our life. So we should see how to chant purely is, at least we have to try to chant offenselessly. That is the first stage. Prabhupada often states that we should try to chant offenselessly. So pure vibration, that is why we have to hear the holy names of pure devotees. When they are chanting, Krishna is descending there, Prabhupada is writing. A pure devotee therefore is not aloof from the Lord even for a moment. Yomam pashyati sarvatra. Krishna says, when a person sees everything as Krishna, Krishna is never lost to him, nor that person is lost to Krishna for a pure devotee. Because he sees Krishna everywhere. When he is chanting, there is this disciple of Prabhupada, I heard this story a few years ago. This was narrated by another devotee. And the sannyasi was asked that there's so many disciples of Prabhupada are there, they are carrying their deities with them, or they have their personal deities for them to worship. But we never see you have any personal deities. What is the reason? Like, we are just curious. And this disciple of Srila Prabhupada, without a moment thinking, not even a split thought, he immediately put his hand in his bead bag, pulled his japa beads, and he said, "This is my deity." This is the vision of a pure devotee, is they see the sound representation of Krishna as non-different from Krishna. Right? The holy name of the Lord, as recommended in the Shastra, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare, may therefore be constantly chanted by the devotee aspiring to be constantly in touch with Krishna. This is very important for us to read. This is the purport for us to read and keep within our consciousness today. Prabhupada is saying, we may not be pure, we are not pure devotees. But Prabhupada is saying, therefore, but we have to aspire to constantly chant Krishna's names so that we can be constantly in touch with Krishna. Prabhupada is saying, doesn't matter whether we are pure devotee or not, but we have to aspire to constantly chant Krishna's names. One who is thus able to associate with Krishna is sure to be delivered from the darkness of the created world, which is the product of false ego. The last word, because the sky is transformed, then okay, all the other elements are all created. From sky, air is created, right? Yeah. From sound, it's ether. Then from ether to touch, then air. From air to form to fire. Then from fire, taste is created, and then water, which is essentially from water you get taste, and then you have earth. So you have 5 elements: earth, air, fire, water, earth, and all the respective qualities of each of the elements are subsequently created. So Prabhupada writes that earth has all the 5 qualities. It has sound, touch, form, taste, smell, and water has taste and other 3 qualities before, and fire has form and other 2 qualities of sound and touch before, and air has touch and sound, and ether has only sound. So all these elements are all created. And Prabhupada writes in the purport, so if he's just one example, Prabhupada gives that because air is the most critical element in our body, if we can balance the type of air within our body, all the diseases can be brought almost nil by exercise. This is Ayurveda. Prabhupada is explaining Ayurveda in his purport that the balance of kapha, pitta, vayu, all these things, if there is an imbalance, like sometimes I have, some disturbance comes in the body. So that can be cured by Ayurveda. But Prabhupada says, a bhakti yogi, however, surpasses all the yogis because by dint of his bhakti, he is promoted to the region beyond the material sky and is placed in one of the planets in the spiritual sky. How? By the supreme will of Krishna, the controller of everything. By the will of Krishna and his representative, a devotee is given entrance into the spiritual kingdom. Hare Krishna. We'll stop here. Jagat Guru Srila Prabhupada ki jai. Grantraj Srimad Bhagavatam ki jai. Hare Krishna.
And thank you so much, Prabhuji, for a wonderful class. Hare Krishna, Prabhu.
Hare Krishna. Thank you, Guruji.
Thank you very much, Prabhuji.
Thank you.
Hare Krishna, Prabhuji.
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.